Okay. Good evening, everybody. For the record, 5:15 p.m. on Thursday, June 24th, 2021. Time for the regular meeting of the Wenatchee City Council. We are just upstairs from our groundbreaking, so you missed a couple of sledgehammers into the walls downstairs as we are starting the construction of the remodel of our new city hall. So contractors are on site and they'll start tearing stuff up on Monday. So we are back from that. Our first item, of course, is our call to order, and then our pledge of allegiance to the flag. So Councilmember Huffaker, would you lead us this time?
I'd be honored. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for roll call this evening, we have all 7 council members with us tonight. Our first item on the agenda would be the consent items, which would be approval of this evening's agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from the previous meeting, and a resolution regarding changing our meetings in November and December.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve agenda vouchers and minutes from previous meetings. And resolution number 2021-30, revising the regular meeting schedule for November and December 2021.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Hornby, second by Councilmember Bailey to adopt this evening's consent items, including the agenda vouchers and the minutes from our previous meetings, and to adopt resolution number 2021-30, revising the regular meeting schedule for November and December of 2021. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is citizen comment. I think we may have a few folks who would like to address the city council on something that's not either on today's agenda or not. Mr. Miller, I see you. Come on up. Yeah.
All the way?
All the way. Sit down. Name and address for the record. Get a cupcake.
You're the next contestant.
I can be bribed. Thank you. Mark Miller, 1801 Aspen, and I spend my days over at the Town Toyota Center, and would like to take just a second to let you know a little bit about the arena and to thank you for your foresight into the start of the funding to get us reopened. With the Town Toyota Centers, it's average anywhere from $7 to $8 million of economic impact per year. Obviously, we're not there at this moment. And during the 15-month shutdown, the arena never just sat idle. And I know you've probably read the report that came through. What we did was completely pivot ourselves to where we became a food and beverage item, whether it was with COVID hotels or working with 2 counties to deliver food into many different aspects from contracts that we were awarded. Also, of course, we cut our staff down to bare minimum, and even the bare minimum that stayed, obviously worked for less wages and to do what we had to do. But you got to look at the arena. Is it can't just shut like a restaurant. Anybody work in orchards? That we have enough ammonia and ethyl glycol to make everyone's life miserable. So obviously those, repair and maintenance has to be ongoing, and you can't miss that. So that was all kept up. And so with the food contracts that we were able to be awarded, amongst other things, we went through yet again 20 to 30 to 40 items of doing things with drive-throughs or whatever to survive, to try and pay our insurance and to try to pay what staff we've had. Obviously, the vaccines have helped immensely for the past 6 months, and the testing before that. So now we're looking at where the vaccines will end July the 1st, and we're looking at a reopening part. And to reopen with us, we don't spend on a dime. We're an ocean liner. And to restaff up, we're going to be staring at about 3 months with full staff and no revenue. It's chicken and egg. How do you get that done? And so with your foresight to start us in that type of funding to get us going, and hopefully we're going to get good news June 30th, we think, Linda. And indications of looking for the fall to get there. So those dollars not only help us to pay new staff, because sadly, we have many that didn't return after 15 months. We're going to be hiring new staff. We also have, the cleaning protocols that are going to be with us for a while, and the new equipment, whether it's touchless, restroom type deals or the cleaning equipment. So which much of that was already purchased. Helps us to get to that point where we can be in a reopening phase for the fall and start to get back to that $7-8 million value-wide economic impact. The good part is we do have 3 main public shows booked. We also did our first CVCH came with us yesterday. So our first public meeting on the floor of the arena. But three major either concerts or publics are also booked. The Wenatchee Wild does have a full schedule, hopefully beginning October 9th. Obviously, there's some border issues that have to be clicked into there. So that is where those dollars are going to. So I wanted to thank you very much. And to honestly, a few months ago, I didn't know what we were going to do. So appreciate you stepping up and looking to get this arena back to where it can be a positive aspect again.
Thanks, Mark. I know he's looking forward to La Firma. What's it called?
Grupo Firma.
Grupo Firma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The name.
And I heard today
Yes.
Sticks might be coming. So,
Six will be here September 21, but it's not public, not well.
might be
It's not public.
Sorry, Jen. Yeah, so Six will be here, the Wenatchee Wine Awards will be here. And to be honest, it is the Wild Wild West. Right now, it is bouncing and going, but I'll be honest, I can't open right now. It takes, we need a full staff and a full staff ongoing. It's not an in-training situation or anything. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Anybody else wish to address the council? Yes, ma'am. Come on up.
First time for me.
Oh, you're fine.
My name is Linda Sullivan, and my address is 7020 Jump Off Road.
Okay.
My concern that I wanted to ask about is why is the pool, the city pool, still requiring masks? My grandchildren have a meet this weekend. It's going to be 110, 111, and there's 3 of them. They have to wear a mask at the city pool. I'm concerned about their safety.
David, do you want to answer that since you're the city pool expert? Come on up. And the COVID
How many
expert.
revisions
Yeah.
has David ridden?
Hi, Dave Erickson, Parks and Recreation Director for the city. Yeah, so we've been following the Department of Health guidelines, the state guidelines, the LNI guidelines for pool operation. And about every week to 10 days since February, those guidelines have changed. The current guidelines require anybody, whether you've been vaccinated or not, if you're at a facility that has youth or adolescents, you're required to wear a mask. And since that's what the pool is, that's what we have to follow. And those are the state guidelines.
Is that the same for our programs, for all of our
Yep.
summer programs, for all the, I'm using the wrong term, but all of our
Yeah,
programs?
summer day camps,
Summer
they
day
have to
camp,
wear
all that
masks.
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're hoping that on June 30th, with the new guidelines coming out, we're hoping that those will be changing and relaxed, but as of right now, they're not. We've heard that the bulk of the guidelines will most likely be dropped, but masking, they were still working on the updates on the mask, the Department of Health was. So we don't know where those fall yet, but that's why we're still where we are. The pool, the timing of the meet, we've actually talked to Velocity about it because they're the ones that actually coordinate the meet, about moving the date of the meet a few weeks, so that way then those guidelines would be relaxed and they weren't willing or able to move that meet back later on. Same thing for the heat. We said, well, we've got a couple of different issues.
So if the governor makes a decision tomorrow to change all that, then that would be different for the meet. But
Yep.
if he doesn't, then we're stuck with the Department of Health guidelines.
Exactly. And at the start of the season too, to even have the pool operate, we had to provide a operational plan to our local Department of Health, have them approve it, have our city insurance approve it, and then Velocity also had to provide that for the meets on how the meets were going to operate. Everything from the flow of people through the facility, in the front door, out the side door. We had to add a new gate, so that way we didn't have people crossing over, distancing and all that stuff. So it's been quite a challenge to even get the pool up and operating this year because of those guidelines.
Is it the first meet of the year?
No, this is the last meet of the year. The first meet was about 3 weeks ago, the Apple Capital Invitational meet, and it went really well. Velocity of the volunteers did
Basically, the
great.
same guidelines occurred then, right? Where
Yeah.
everyone was wearing masks and, yeah.
Yep, exactly the same, other than it's way hotter now than it was then. But we've been working with Velocity. They have some heat protocols in place. So they're looking at doing misting stations for the timers. The kids have to wear the masks, or whoever's on the pool deck still has to wear the mask while they're there. But once they get outside of the fenced area, they don't have to wear those masks. Kids don't have to wear them, obviously, when they're in the pool swimming. It's a little hard to swim with those on.
Well,
Well,
thank you.
yeah, and Linda, again, some of that we think is sort of silly.
so
but
frustrating.
Our job is to follow the guidelines, and we're sort of stuck with that. And I'm glad Dave was here because he said everything that I wouldn't have been able to say quite as clearly and succinctly as he has. And so, and I know he would know because he has to change them every 2 weeks when the governor comes up with a new sets of rules. So he's been changing for the last 6 months now. So he's on it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I forgot what I was going to say by the time I left there.
Okay, you're right. Anybody else wish to address the council before we get into our action items? See no other takers, we will move on to our action items. First is regarding a master agreement with the land trust. Dave, you're back up here. Kurt, you want to come up with them?
That's what you forgot.
Come on up, Kurt. You guys all know Kurt Soper, the director of the land trust. So gentlemen, it's all yours.
For the record, we're located at 18 North Wenatchee Avenue.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Dave Erickson, Parks and Recreation Director again for the city. So over the last 20-plus years, I want to say, the City and Land Trust have had a really successful partnership. I put a summary of all of that in your packet of all the various projects that we've done. Since then, I want to say we've protected jointly about 3,500 acres in that neighborhood. Countless numbers of projects. So one of the things that we've been talking about doing since at least 2015 is coming up with a kind of a master agreement between the city and the land trust to streamline our processes, kind of set out those expectations that are the same for all the projects, no matter what we're doing, if it's an acquisition or development project or what have you. And it's been one of those things is we'll work on it as time allows. Well, here we are since 2015, now we're 6 years later. Well, we finally got it to the finish line, we think. So we provided the agreement in the packet. It's been reviewed by the city insurance, by the city and land trust attorneys. Arts Rec and Park Commission recommended approval. It's been reviewed by the Public Works Committee, and then the Chelan Douglas Land Trust Board. Staff's recommending approval of it. It's kind of nice to get this one to the finish line. As different projects come forward, we would take and just modify the scope of work for those. And so it keeps it fresh and going. And Kurt might have some more to add.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I just wanted to be here tonight to be sure that the council knows how much we appreciate the great working relationship we have with the city. I'm biased because I live here, but I think we have a world-class trail and outdoor recreation system like within a 5-minute drive of pretty much everyone who lives in town. And a lot of communities don't have that, and they're very desirous of it. And we learned that big time over the last year and a half when people were able to get out and do outdoor recreation without having to go very far. Dave mentioned the 3,500 acres. It's also 25 miles of trails in the foothills. There's 5 trailheads that are either been completed or are about to be completed over the last 20 years. So like I say, it's a pretty nifty thing to have right in our backyard. I know I enjoyed it. I'm sure all of you do too, but maybe not in the next 10 days or so, unless you're doing it about 4:30 in the morning.
Early morning.
Lastly, I just say that the agreement that Dave and the attorney has been working on, it really kind of codifies the way it's been going for the last 10 years or so. For essentially, the land trust is responsible for maintaining and managing the trails themselves, and the city has the responsibility of the trailheads of managing, like the big one at Saddle Rock, for instance. And lastly, just leave you with the fact that there's more where this came from. We have some projects we're working on now some of which have been brought to the council, and we're gonna keep doing more of that, and we're excited to get even more done.
Great. Thanks, Kurt. David, any questions for either of them? If
No,
not,
David-
yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, David, just your timeline, showing all the things that happened, it was kind of a trip down memory lane to see all of those pieces that we worked on over the years, and some of them just kind of realize how much work has gone into developing this incredible resource that we have here. So at any rate, thank you and your staff for all the work that you do to maintain that. The Land Trust has been just great to work with, and it's a great example of cooperation between private and governmental entities to really get something important done and project it into the future. I mean, this all along it's been, kind of everybody wants to get on the trail, but hopefully those trails will be there for a long, long time. So thank you.
You bet. Yeah, we couldn't have done it absolutely without our partners, and it's been just a great partnership from the start.
All right, any other questions or discussion items? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move for City Council to approve the master agreement with the Chelan Douglas Land Trust and authorize the mayor to sign it.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Harold, second by Councilmember Huffaker to approve the master agreement with the Chelan Douglas Land Trust and authorize the mayor's signature. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt. Thanks,
Thanks,
David.
y'all.
Thank you.
I did remember what I came up to say.
Okay.
We reviewed the governor's, I knew it'd come around, the governor's press conference to see if there were going to be any changes today with regard to masking and all that stuff, and there was nothing new. It was all about housing and rent
Okay.
stuff, so we'll keep looking.
Okay, great.
you.
Thanks, David.
Dave, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor, can I
Sure.
take a moment? I had this to do here for several meetings, and sometimes you weren't here, but anyway, I got you here tonight. I just wanted to publicly thank Dave and his parks folks for the summer program that you put together this year under incredibly difficult circumstances. The one meeting you came in, you had all the documents and everything all set and ready to go, and next day the governor sent something new and you had to go back and do it all over again. But in the end, to keep this program going and have the kinds of opportunities for our youth in this community is outstanding, and I want to commend you for the work that you've done on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
and isn't it fun to see the splash pads open and kids playing in
It's so
Washington
great.
Park and Rotary Park, and it's just, yeah, just,
Yeah, the kids are
looks-
out there playing. They're having a great time.
Yeah,
They've
looks
missed
great.
it so much.
thanks, David.
Thank you.
All right, next item is a 60% annexation resolution regarding DJML. Brooklyn, how are you today?
Good, how are you guys?
Good, thanks.
Evening, Council of Brooklyn Holton, Neighborhood and Community Services Coordinator. So we have the DJML annexation. It is up on Horse Lake. And this is in front of you guys, Resolution 2021-29 to set a date for a public hearing. At that public hearing, we will bring an ordinance in front of you guys that will finalize and accept the annexation and allow us to set an effective date for it to be completely finalized and that property be in the city. It says residential high in the agenda report, and I just wanted to provide a correction that is residential moderate. So just that detail. But the 60% petition, we received the legal description and acceptance from the Chelan County Assessor's Office that it was adequate. There is only one property owner, so it was fairly cut and dry one. And we will be taking in the right-of-way only in front of the border, in front of the property. So we won't be taking all of Horse Lake in this annexation. Any questions on this one?
Nope.
No. You guys are seeing a lot of these. You're getting so good.
Any questions for Brooklyn? If not, I'd entertain a motion to set the public hearing date.
Well, Your Honor, I'd make a motion for City Council to approve Resolution 2021-29, establishing a date of July 8, 2021 for a public hearing to consider final action on the DJML annexation.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Cuevas to approve Resolution 2021-29, establishing a date of July 8th, 2021 for a public hearing to consider final action on the DJML annexation.
So we already did the 10%.
Yes, on March 11th, you guys approved the
Right.
10%, which adopted the boundary is the same as the one.
And the bonded indebtedness obligation.
Mhm.
That's what I wanted to make sure.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Brooklyn. And then we have our last items regarding some homeless funding. So Glenn, you want to come up and, I don't know if you have other folks with you and go over what we're doing?
We do, and at a certain point, let me see, Women's Resource Center and YWCA.
Yeah,
I
they're all
believe, are in
here. They're sort of
attendance.
coming up right behind you.
Oh, what, no, why don't you come up? Let me get you.
Grab some chairs and, yeah,
That'd be good. Socially distant, but
yeah.
That's okay.
So let us know who's here, Glenn, before you start.
You bet. So we have members from both the Women's Resource Center, and I'll let folks introduce themselves, and then the YWCA. And both of those entities had gaps in allocations that weren't funded for their programs, which I'll talk a little bit about more in my presentation. But they were gracious enough to come this evening to thank you for the funding allocations, and wanted to talk just a little bit about what they do and express their thanks. And I don't know if you want to introduce yourselves and go around the table? Or
right.
top table.
My name is Rachel Todd. I'm the Executive Director of the YWCA of North Central Washington here in Wenatchee, just a couple blocks down the road, actually. I wanted to come and give you folks a really big thank you for considering funding for our permanent supportive housing program that we have been in operation for a long time now. It's been funded through these grants that there was a gap in funding for since 2016, and this year, unfortunately, there was just a little less money in that pot. The folks who live in our permanent supportive housing program, we have 7 units in a small apartment complex, and they're folks who typically can't find housing anywhere else in the city or in East Wenatchee. I think, as we all know, the rents in this area are pretty high, and they continue to go up, especially within the last 15 months. And the folks that we serve absolutely would not be able to afford those rents, and perhaps have other barriers that would preclude them from being able to even apply for an apartment as well. I have one story in particular of a couple that moved into our apartments just before the pandemic hit, actually. And they had been looking for housing for 5 years. They had been living out of a car, they had been living with family, and they had been going all around the city trying to find housing. They weren't in a position where they could go anywhere else besides Wenatchee. And we were kind of the last stop for them. And they have turned into model residents for us. It's a couple that lives in our apartments. They have a little dog. They come out and say hi to us every morning. They help us with landscaping on their own. And they have just really, really flourished. And they're in such a better position now than they were a year and a half ago. And I don't even like to think about what may have happened had they not come to our apartments before the pandemic hit. So it's a really important program. It has real impact on real people within Wenatchee. And we're very, very, very grateful for your support.
Thanks, Rachel.
I for sure should have taken her up on going first because that is quite an act to follow. Thank you, Rachel. My name is Scooter Harder. I'm the interim executive director for the Women's Resource Center of NCW. Rachel's neighbor. We're here to talk about 2 programs that we have. One is permanent supportive housing, similar to what Rachel was speaking of, with a couple of exceptions. We are so very close to getting occupancy. If anyone here knows anybody who could help us with that. We are really down to the wire on our Miller Park project. We're hoping by the beginning of next week at the latest to start our lease-up process. It is a 20-unit permanent supportive housing, and what that means is that once someone comes, they can stay as long as they want, regardless of changes of income or health or whatever it may be. So our folks are, they need to meet two qualifications. The first is chronic homelessness, and there's a whole lot of different ways you can get to this number, but basically it's 12 months or more of homelessness. So we're talking about the most severe of cases. It's not someone who maybe lost their apartment last week. There are some real issues that go along with their homelessness. In addition to that, they also need to have a diagnosed disability. So you add those two things together, and we're talking about some of the hardest to house folks. And why the permanent supportive housing that both agencies do is important is because you really aren't going to solve the homelessness issue by handing someone a set of keys. The behaviors that got them there, maybe the mental health or drug use or whatever else it may be, is still going to be present. So what they need is regular case management, and case management that leads them to meet the goals that they're setting for themselves. So this is going to take literally the folks that we're seeing on the street today in just a very short period of time are going to have their own apartment, their own beautiful little apartment at 1207 Cashmere, and we're super excited about it. When we went in front of the county for funding, they seemed like very happy about our project, but suggested that maybe the city should use their homeless funds as opposed to the county. They were diverted, as you know, to some more outlying areas. So the two programs we're here to talk about are our Miller Park. Again, hopefully you can nudge anyone. We're looking for occupancy next week. And the other program is our landlord-tenant liaison program. And I'm going to let William Bilderback talk a little bit about that. And here he is.
Hello, William Bilderback, Program Director for the Landlord Liaison Program. Our program, we partner with landlords and we utilize rental assistance from Community Action to help find housing that's already in place rather than looking to new projects. And like Scooter said, we came up a little bit short on our funding as well, and I just want to thank you for considering us for the allocation of these funds. I brought a few numbers just to share with you. Presently, we have 20 partnered landlords that add up to units up in the thousands between all these partnered landlords. Since the program kicked off in May of 18, just roughly over about 3 years ago, we've enrolled, we're just coming up on the 100 household mark. We currently have 48 active households, with 12 of them looking for housing, and we've also exited about 47 households to permanent housing. Of these 90 plus households, we've only had 2 exit back to homelessness. One of them, we navigated the eviction, and they're still in our program. It just didn't work out. She's still in our program, and we're going to take another crack at it. It just wasn't a good fit. But we've housed close to 100 families. That's going to be a milestone that we will reach this year. We're just a little bit short on the funding to make that happen.
Thank you. Thank all of you. So Glenn, tell us what we're going to do, or what you're asking the council to do.
Yes, definitely. Well, thanks so much for coming. It just, we all see the impacts of homelessness in our community, but we have just amazing committed agencies that provide, on a daily basis, make a positive impact and make progress on homelessness. So thanks for what you do and coming this evening. So as is noted, we had some funding gaps. The task force on June 2nd made some recommendations led by the counties that provided some deficiencies on 5 different programs. The county decided to do more of an emphasis on rural navigators, which really don't do a lot for homelessness, really aren't consistent with the homeless plan, but that was the choice that was made, and funds were pulled from these programs, which are essential. It'd help if I were using my presentation PowerPoint here. So you've seen this slide before. It's sort of, essentially it's the crisis system, the continuum of care we have. And when you pull 5 segments out of that system, it doesn't function very well. We're making progress. Over time, we've housed folks who do good work here, and made a positive impact in decreasing overall homelessness. Our unsheltered population has increased, but our overall numbers have decreased. And it's through the good work of these folks that that's happened. But you pull 5 funding slots out of this system, and it's really problematic. So the 5 spots that were not funded or just were partially funded were again, the landlord-tenant liaison program, the Miller Park supportive housing, the YWCA permanent supportive housing, the People's Foundation severe weather shelter program, and then homeless outreach. Women's Resource Center landlord-tenant liaison program, the staff looking at an award for $262,000 for 2 years. Initially, that funding source would be through federal dollars and $36,000 through the county. And then ultimately also some local homeless dollars. Miller Park funding is available through 1406 funds. These funds had not previously been allocated and have a very narrow band of what you can use them for, so they've been building at the city. So this is a great opportunity with these new units coming on. They have to be used for affordable housing, permanent supportive housing. This is a really good fit for these these dollars we previously hadn't applied. YWCA permanent supportive housing. We're looking for the federal dollars to help fund this initially. Long-term, the low barrier, the income we receive from recording fees can fund this long-term, but we need some assistance with the federal dollars up front. So our available funding sources, just really briefly, each fund source that we looked at has limitations on what you can use it for. So it's a real chess game on making sure you have the right fit for the funds. And our local document recording fees that the city now controls about $185,000. Those will start accruing in August, but we have a gap where we have to bill them to really start using them. That's where the federal funds come in the first year. They really help us in that initial year until we accrue enough funds. But they're very broad. Any homeless program can be used with those local document recording fees. Affordable housing for all, those funds are very limited. It fits really well for an emergency shelter like the one for the People's Foundation that they held for in the winter shelter. The 1406 state sales tax, that works really well for our support of permanent supportive housing for the operations for that Miller Park shelter. The federal funds can be used for COVID impacts for homelessness. We've been coordinating with Brad on that and the documentation necessary to do that. And again, that can really help us in that first year, so then we can build enough funds to support those grants for the second year. And then lastly, our other fund that we have available is the affordable housing local tax that was just passed for 1590. That starts building in September, I'm sorry. But we have quite a few projects built up, Sleep Center and others, which those funds would be applied for. So you have a number of a proposal before you for tonight to allow the mayor to enter into contracts for these gaps, these funding gaps. And just to let you know, there's more to come. This says this is a 2-year grant award. There will be more, though, coming that we'll have to amend that. Our interlocal agreement for those future projects with East Wenatchee, we provided that to them in May. We hope to get that back from them next week, and then we'll be working with legal counsel and each city council. Would love to have that done in July if possible. Our city staff position for the city program starts in August, and we're continuing to work on our sleep center. So there's more to come, but initially we have a gap. We have 5 gaps, and we really need staff's recommendation is to allow the mayor to enter into contracts on them so we don't have an impact to the overall system in the meantime. So I have before you homeless fund recommendations. The total Fund request is $570,721,000 for all the programs. I just want to note the outreach program is not included in this. The member of the Women's Resource Center that was running that actually is switching to a different job position. Long-term, the city was looking at doing something, maybe doing an integrated system with law enforcement on outreach. So there are two agencies currently doing some outreach. So there will be a gap while we work on a new outreach system integrating with law enforcement. So that isn't part of this funding package. I have before you a motion for consideration that would authorize the mayor to enter into these contracts, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
My comment to Glenn and the folks that are here is, thank you for doing this. I know we talked about when we switched the county that we sort of envisioned that they might do something like this against the recommendations of the steering committee and others. So I think we fully anticipated that this might happen. We knew we were getting ARP funds, and my task to Glenn was how do you best use the ARP funds and current funding to make sure at least the next 2 years are as normal for these two organizations as possible as we sort of work through this transition. So I commend you and your team for coming up with a plan that used all of the funds that we had in different buckets, minus the 1590 funds to keep these two organizations doing the great things that they do in our valley. And so I commend you for your work on that and getting the right answer. Yeah.
Exactly. Can I just add, thank you so very much also for what you do. The work you're doing is amazing, and you are making a huge difference in our community, and I really appreciate all that you're doing. And I'm just really pleased that you're here, and hopefully we can help you out.
Any questions for Glenn or the team? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I will move for City Council to authorize the mayor's signature on the contracts with grant and sub-grant recipients for homeless program services and housing identified on Exhibit A of the report.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Harold, second by Councilmember Huffaker. To authorize the mayor's signature on the contracts with grant and sub-grant recipients for homeless program services and housing identified on Exhibit A of the report attached. Any discussion?
I just wanted to add a comment. I don't know that we hear these success stories enough. And so it was great that you guys were here tonight to let us know how these funds have been working in the past and how well they've been working. So thank you for coming in.
And it's been a while since I've toured the YWCA, probably pre-you, but I have toured it a number of years ago, and I haven't been in the Bruce Hotel in quite some time. We did tour the Parkside units when they first got built a number of years ago, but I'd be interested in looking at the newer ones at I guess you call it Miller Park as well. So the more that we can get in and look and see the great work that you're doing, the more attached we become to those programs. So
we would love to have you, and we'll be sure to put each of you on our invite list for our open house when that is a possibility for Miller Park.
Awesome.
Yay.
All right, Travis.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You.
Mayor's report. I've got just a couple of items. We got a request today from Waste Management to start collecting garbage at 5 in the morning while it's 118 degrees out. So we said okay, so they'll be starting a little earlier than normal, at least for the remaining part of this week and next week. So East Wenatchee and Wenatchee have allowed the trucks to get out a little earlier. So hopefully you can sleep through the garbage truck when it comes through your neighborhood. I think you saw the sales tax numbers are out for April. So again, continuing to move along in the way that I think we anticipated they would, seeing all the good construction that's going on in our community. So that's all going well. No news on Infer at this point. We anticipate hopefully something any day, but the list is not out. So Laura looks every morning on the whatever website you're looking at. I think that's really about it. We will have, next time we meet in a couple of weeks, I anticipate we'll have an executive session on some legal and real estate matters. So I would expect in a couple of weeks, we'll be in a position to sit down with the city attorney and others and go over a couple of issues that we've been dealing with over the last couple of weeks. Laura, anything else on my list? Council members?
Just today was the annual business meeting for AWC.
Okay.
Mark and Linda and I were the delegates, but there was a bit of a snafu getting on. It took
Oh, that's too bad.
forever to get on there. So Mark and I eventually got on, I think probably about 10 to 10 before the meeting started. And Linda never did get in. So
Okay.
at any rate, we gave it our best shot. So, but at any rate, it went well. And
Good. Hopefully next year we'll be able to do one in person and actually go do it in the normal
yeah,
way.
yeah. Next year we'll be in Vancouver, and so. But at any rate, the conference went well. I think one of the highlights, of the whole thing, opening speaker was former Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And
That was
did you get a
awesome.
chance to hear him?
That was awesome.
It was absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
And they said that it wasn't going to be recorded, but apparently it is, and it will be available for the next 30 days on
Oh, good.
on AWC. I'll get the information on where to go and log in and.
Yeah, I'd love
where.
to watch that.
But it was one of those things where he talked for 5 minutes, and it would take you an hour to unpack what he said. Amazing man. So anyway, a lot of good things he said about leadership and that kind of thing. So anyway, that was a special time this week for that.
And he did point out he was a native Washingtonian.
Yeah.
And the
cities and
the immediate past president of AWC is the mayor of Twisp.
Okay.
And he said he has been to Twisp.
Yeah. Good.
I think one of the things that you talk about, your path of life, and he said, he graduated from Central, got his degree from Central, and then of course the Vietnam War started and that thing. But he said he had his life all planned out. He was going to had his degree. He was going to teach physics and coach football, and eventually ends up 4-star General of the Marine Corps and Secretary of Defense. So his life sometimes takes some really interesting turns.
Yeah, it's something he never aspired to. I think he said.
Yeah, I never aspired to it.
And I think my takeaway leadership quote was, "Officers eat last."
And they don't need a bigger tent.
Yeah, they don't need a bigger tent.
And I will say this to Dave Erickson, I don't know if he's still here or not, but everything that, well, now he's dealing with all these people and heat.
Yeah.
Right, so now we have a hydration plan and there's, extra water for the parks and making sure you're watching the kid, it just can't seem to have anything normal for that poor guy in terms of all the stuff that he has to go through, so.
Speaking of heat, do we have, or agencies in the community, do we have some program for cooling people that, not necessarily homeless or whatever, but just, elderly people that don't have air conditioning and whatever?
I am not aware of a cooling center at this point. Glenn, have you heard of anything? Okay. Yes, Scooter knows.
Well, I don't know. I know that some folks in our agency were very concerned, and they have some clients that we thought were going to be in Miller Park by now. And so we were talking about ways that we could help some folks, and we partnered in severe weather year before last.
Right.
This year, we did a motel program through private funds through 3 churches that supported it, and we didn't spend all of that money. So I actually reached out to one of the churches right before I came here. There was about $4,400 that was left paid to someone else, but they were willing to take a look at it again. And I'm hoping to hear tonight or tomorrow morning about being able to use those for a new severe weather that would put folks up at a new hotel.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Scooter.
Yeah, we're looking at a really unusual thing. I mean, normally, we get a few days of those kinds of things together, but we're looking at 10 to 14 days out of over 100 degrees. So.
I don't remember seeing a forecast that said 113, 114, 115 on it, but it sounds like that's coming.
It's scary.
Yeah.
And just as warm in Portland as here.
Yeah. The coast there, those people are just, they absolutely have no idea what that like.
Yeah.
Unless you live in Arizona.
Well, stay hydrated.
Yeah.
All right, anything else for the good of the order? Nothing next week, so we'll see you guys on the 8th.
So just real quick, Chamber met in person for the first time in quite a while. So that was nice. Some good reports, one from the clinic.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a happening going on with insurance. I don't know if anybody's heard about that, but they are choosing to discontinue their relationship with Primera, which is going to affect several thousand people in the valley.
Yep.
This has happened before, I guess, and at the last minute, they pulled something out, so they're still hopeful that that could be coming up. The other thing, housing inventory is still
Miserable.
36 houses for a 3-month inventory. Yeah.
Not near enough.
And then cars are the same way. So anyway, good meeting. Good to be face to face.
Yep. Travis, you got a little something?
Laura, David, and I met with the design firm and the PUD. They're
Okay.
doing an open house. Laura, do you remember the date on that? And they want the public to come to that. I think it's going to be down at Pybus. Probably some food, maybe some pizza. They want more input on the section of the park from Pybus to Fifth Street.
Okay.
Kind of redesign that, rethink what that is for not right now, but also the future. So there's some great ideas of some either more open space or condensing. So there's some good ideas out there, but we're going to get the public's input on those dates.
Good.
I have to do a coho.
Yeah,
review
you got Monday?
spot on that.
Yeah, perfect. All right. See you guys in a couple weeks. We're adjourned.
All right.